Hey everyone, Duke here, and today's video goes over the question, what weapon rolls should I be keeping? This is an extremely common question, and to be completely honest, there's no one-size-fits-all answer, but we will be going over what I consider to be my 10 best kinetic weapons in the game, along with rolls to shoot for. A couple of notes. First, this is my list, and there are sure to be those that disagree. Don't use something just because I say it is good, and don't not use something just because I don't mention it if you like it and it works for you. Leave a comment below with some of your favorite weapons. Second, this video is only going over kinetic weapons. I will be looking to make follow-up videos for both energy and power weapons in the future. And finally, I will only be considering weapons that have a direct source to acquire and farm them from. I want to make sure everyone interested in acquiring these weapons actually has a way to do so. For those newer to the game, kinetic weapons are weapons that will be used in your first weapon slot and will always be either kinetic or stasis damage type. A common point of confusion, especially if you played Destiny 1, is that these have a specific ammo type. This is actually not true, as kinetic weapons can be both special or primary ammo type weapons. Starting off with number 10 on my list, we have Smite Marine. Smite Marine is a pulse rifle that is acquirable through the King's Fall raid. I know not everyone likes pulse rifles, and there's actually quite a few people that aren't huge fans of this specific pulse rifle, but a couple things that I really like about it. First, it is a very unique role in what you can get in Demolitionist and Firefly, and this is the role I have and I would recommend going for. Firefly is a perk and trait that I really enjoy. It's going to give you both AoE damage in terms of being able to add clear a little bit, and reload speed whenever you get precision kills, so it's a nice combination there. And then Demolitionist gives you another way to reload when you're throwing your grenade, also gives you grenade energy when you're getting kills, and honestly both of these perks are two of my favorite perks in the game, and the fact that I can put both of them on the same weapon, very beneficial. Not only that, but Smite Marine has a very nice origin trait called Runneth Over, which all of the King's Fall raid weapons have. This is going to give you basically a bigger magazine based on how many allies you are next to when you reload. This can actually go up all the way to about 50% extra magazine if you are next to 5 teammates, especially in a raid scenario when you can actually have that many people. But this is a nice origin trait. This is one of the better origin traits. Not the absolute best origin trait in my opinion, but one of the better ones, and gives it a nice boost as well. Also note that Smite Marine is craftable by getting 5 of the red border patterns that you need in order to craft it. Most of the weapons I'm going to be talking about today are craftable, not every single one. I'll try to make sure to mention which ones are and which ones are not, but Smite Marine is a craftable weapon, so once you get 5 patterns, you can get the exact role that you are looking for and after leveling it up. At number 9, we have Deliverance. Deliverance is a stasis fusion rifle which can be received from the Vow of the Disciple raid. So stasis specifically has a few perks that can only roll on stasis weapons, one of which is Chill Clip. And this is going to allow for all of the top half of the magazine shots that you take to basically slow targets, and if you hit multiple times with Chill Clip, you will also freeze targets. So this is a very nice way to kind of have a way to not just AoE, this does have some AoE to it, but it also just has some nice utility in terms of being able to protect yourself against bigger targets that may be hard to get down, especially through a special weapon in case you're out of heavy and you can't really take something down. It can also freeze maybe like a champion if you can't quite take it down right away for some reason. But it's a really nice perk. It both freezes and, again, AoEs. And then once you freeze something and you break that freeze, that will also AoE and kind of destroy anything that is around it. Once again, our other main perk on Deliverance is going to be Demolitionist, as, again, like we just talked about, I really enjoy the ability to reload on a grenade throw. I really like getting my grenades back on kills. You're going to get a lot of kills with this if you're killing some weaker enemies and getting some of that AoE proc from Chill Clip, so you can get your grenades back quickly. You can get your Deliverance reloaded quickly, again, by throwing your grenade, and if you're doing any sort of grenade-focused builds, you really want to have those grenades up quickly, and this is going to help you do that. And again, we have a really nice origin trait on Deliverance called Soul Drinker, where every single time you reload, you're going to get health back based on the number of hits before you reloaded. This is a really nice origin trait in order to be able to kind of keep yourself topped off, keeps you protected on top of being able to kill stuff. Again, of course, you don't want to die either, so when you're reloading, this is going to give you health back. Really nice origin trait, one of the best origin traits in the game, in my opinion. At number 8, we have our first exotic, Izanagis Burden. This is an exotic, as we just mentioned, sniper, which can be acquired from the Monument to Lost Lights kiosk in the tower. So this is actually a very unique and somewhat niche weapon, but basically the main thing Izanagis is going to do that's really beneficial is it's going to hit really, really hard for a special weapon. The Catalyst, which you're definitely going to want if you're going to use this weapon, allows for Honed Edge to basically do even more damage than normal. Basically, Honed Edge is going to be a like longer reload, an extra reload where you take all 4 of your normal mag shots, combine it into one singular shot, and again do a lot of damage. And with the Catalyst, you do even more damage when you get that Honed Edge shot, that single basically times 4 shot to hit something really, really hard. Now, as this is a special weapon, and usually your heavy weapons are going to be where your main DPS comes from, but this is a special weapon, right? So you can kind of min-max your ammo economy a little bit more. So a lot of times when Izanagis is used, it's going to be used with something that you can kind of hot swap with, where you shoot your Izanagi shot, quickly do the reload, and then cancel the end of the animation, and then swap to, a lot of times it's going to be an auto-loading rocket launcher. You shoot that rocket, you bring back your Izanagis, you can shoot that next Izanagi shot, and you just kind of continue that process. And this is really nice, again, because you're using your special and your heavy ammo for DPS kind of simultaneously, rather than usually, again, just heavy. So it allows you to have a little bit more ammo economy, and also really nice burst DPS in terms of being able to shoot that Izzy shot and then the rocket right after. So even in a shorter damage phase, this can be really, really useful, is because of how much damage it can do in such a short amount of time. Do note that most exotics do not have random rolls. Not all, there are some new exotics that do have random rolls, but Izanagis is not one of those. It does not have a random roll. You buy it, it will have exactly these perks. Again, you won't have the Catalyst right away when you purchase this weapon. You will need to earn it through playlist activities, that being Gambit, Strikes, and Crucible, and then once you get it, you will need to level it up, but definitely worth doing, and will make this weapon even that much more impactful. Next we have lucky number 7, Hung Jury. This scout rifle is returning to the Nightfall rotation this season and will now have origin traits available, as the last time Hung Jury was farmable was before origin traits could be acquired on it. So I will definitely be wanting to farm this again this season. If you do the Grandmaster versions of Nightfalls, you can get the Adept version. Honestly, Adept weapons, they're slightly better than regular weapons. You do get the extra stats that you can see. You get the extra yellow stats when you fully masterwork a weapon. You also have access to the main mod you're going to want on a lot of Adept weapons, which is Adept Big One spec. Honestly, on a primary, it's not as big. Like, if there was an Adept Small One spec, that would actually be a lot better, I feel like. It's because you're not usually going to just want to plink a boss with a primary with a scout rifle. It helps, you know, it's extra damage in majors and in champions and things like that. It's really nice for, but again, that's major spec anyway. So like, yeah, you get boss spec in on top of that with major spec, but not a huge deal. So if you don't get the Adept version, not a huge deal. It's a little bit extra, but not incredibly important. In terms of the rolls, I really, really like Rapid Hit and Explosive Payload, and this roll is going to be available again this season, at least according to LightGG. This is definitely the roll I'd go for, as I tend to use this in higher level content. It does also roll Firefly, but if you're using this in content where you're not killing stuff quite as fast, I really like Explosive Payload. Just in general, honestly, it does give it extra damage, it prevents drop-off, it also allows for stuns to be easier, especially if it's like an overload scout rifle season, which is not this season, but it's really, really useful just for all sorts of things. And again, Rapid Hit is really nice because even if you're not killing stuff, you're going to get that reload and stability just from precision hits. So if you're hitting something that's pretty tanky, like a champion or like a tankier major, it's still going to give you a benefit, even if it's not a kill. As I did mention, this weapon does also roll Firefly, so if you're going to use this in maybe a little bit lower level content, or at least just know you're going to be able to get enough kills with it, it also rolls Subsistence in Firefly, which I feel like that combination is really, really useful, because again, both of those perks kind of go off of kills. Both of these perks, Rapid Hit and Explosive Payload, go a little bit more off of just doing damage. Again, they both work in a lot of scenarios. They're both going to be really good rolls. I would prefer to keep those perks together though, like Rapid Hit and Explosive Payload, or Subsistence and Firefly, rather than having a combination of them across the board. Again, even if you did, those are all 4 really good perks and it'll be a good weapon, but I'd prefer to pair them together. The final 6 are all very tightly packed for me, and honestly, all of these weapons are, but we're ranking them for the fun of it. At 6, we have Heritage. Heritage is a slug shotgun from the Deepstone Crypt Raid. So Deepstone Crypt introduced a new perk to the game, which is called Reconstruction, which is actually now on a few other non-Deepstone Crypt weapons, but this perk is really, really strong. This is going to double your capacity, basically, in terms of how many shots you can have until you have to reload. It does take some time to do that, basically, as it's not being shot. It will slowly reload itself. It doesn't actually have to be holstered. It's not like auto-loading holster where it has to be holstered to reload it, but it will basically reload one shot every couple seconds as long as it's not being actively used. So this, on a 7 mag on the Heritage, this will eventually bring it up to 14 shots without having to reload, which is super duper duper nice. And there's 2 main damage perks that can go with it. We used to have Recombination, which I still have a Reconstruction Recombination shotgun, but now as of the kind of Deepstone Crypt refresh, it also rolls with Focus Fury, which I feel like is a really, really nice damage perk. Basically, Recombination can give you one shot of approximately double damage, and then it just didn't give you anything. But Focus Fury is going to give you a 20% damage buff for all of your shots past once you get half of the mag as precision damage. So as a 7 mag, and again, I talked about Reconstruction being a quote-unquote 14 mag. This does not take that into account. This takes into account the base mag of, right now it's 7. I think you can also bring it down to 6. Yes, you can, which it will round up. So if you had a 6 mag, you would need 3 precision shots, and then the rest of the mag will be that 20% damage, as long as you don't reload or stow it. If you have a 7 mag, then it will take a 4th shot to proc Focus Fury. However, again, with Reconstruction, if you have the 6 mag, Reconstruction is only bringing it to 12. If you have the 7 mag, it's bringing it to 14. So if you think about the math there, if you have 12 total shots and it takes 3 to proc Focus Fury, you then have 9 shots of 20% damage. But if you have the 7 mag with 14, then again, it takes 4, but now you have 10 shots with Focus Fury, and again, just 2 extra shots in total, so it is going to be more damage there. Also note that the new versions of these Deepstone Crypt weapons have the Bray Inheritance origin trait. They didn't have an origin trait before, but then now they do, and dealing any amount of damage will regenerate a small amount of ability energy. And we like abilities. This is just extra. This was already a really good weapon before it had any origin trait, and now you just get ability energy back for using it. So really, really nice. Also note that Heritage is, again, a craftable weapon. It is going to be a little bit difficult with Deepstone Crypt. You can get 1 red border a week from the final chest with 20 spoils. When it is Deepstone Crypt farmable week or featured week, you can actually farm unlimitedly and potentially get extra red borders. I will tell you right now, the drop rate is abysmal at best. It is possible, though. You definitely can get some. And the great thing is Atrax, the second encounter in Deepstone Crypt, is a really, really fast farm, and it drops the shotgun. And we'll also be dropping another weapon we'll be talking about in just a second, but you can definitely try to farm Atrax and get some of these red border shotguns you may want. Starting out our top 5 kinetic weapons, we've got Submission. Submission is an SMG available from the Vow of the Disciple raid, and is once again craftable. Honestly, this gun just has like a ridiculous amount of good rolls and rolls that feel good. It has Frenzy, it has Perpetual Motion, it has Steady Hands, it has Overflow, like there's just a Swashbuckler, like all really good perks. Killing Wind can even be solid, like there's other perks, like pretty much a lot of the perks are going to be really, really good on this weapon. For me, and this is actually a little bit counterintuitive, but I did decide to craft a roll with Subsistence and Demolitionist. So hear me out. Basically, Subsistence is every time you're getting kills, you're getting a little bit of the mag back and reloaded. We like that, really, really solid. And Demolitionist, when you throw your grenade, again, we've talked about Demolitionist multiple times. When you throw your grenade, it's going to auto full reload the mag. So again, it kind of is a little awkward because you throw a grenade, you get the full mag, and then so it's like, do you really still also need Subsistence? Do you need both of these together? The answer is probably not. Like, no, you don't need both of these together, but I love Subsistence. I personally feel like this is probably the best roll in the 3rd column slot. Overflow is also there. And again, Perpetual Motion is also there, which feels good. I used one with Perpetual Motion for a while, and it was really nice. It definitely felt good, but I feel like, at least for PvE purposes, Subsistence is really, really beneficial. And again, I love Demolitionist. I use grenades all the time. I like grenade-focused builds. So Demo in the 4th slot, which is not common for many weapons. Demolitionist is usually in the 3rd slot here, but being able to put Demo in the 4th slot, still get that, is really, really nice. Frenzy, again, is also here. Frenzy is also going to benefit your reload. It's also going to give you more damage. So I could see Subsistence Frenzy or Overflow Frenzy. And I actually have rolls with those. I have submissions with those specific rolls as well in my vault, and I've used them, and they're both very, very good. They're all very, very good, but for me, the one I crafted was Subsistence and Demolitionist. It's just what felt the best and feels really, really good to me, so that's what we have here. Again, as we talked about earlier with Deliverance, it has this Soul Drinker origin trait, which is going to be super duper nice on a gun like Submission, which you're going to be reloading a lot, gives you health back on the number of hits before reloading. I will say the one downside of Demolitionist on some of these Vow of the Disciple weapons with Soul Drinker is it does not proc this origin trait when you reload using Demolitionist, but again, I feel like the perk itself is just so strong, and again, the origin trait, you can always just reload yourself if you need to or if you want to. So again, it's not the most, like, the perks working perfectly well together roll here, and again, I talked about multiple different other rolls you may want to go for, but this is my roll, and you can kind of make your own decisions. It's a really great weapon, no matter how you roll it, to be honest. At number 4 is the Sniper Rifle Succession. Succession is a high-impact sniper rifle, and like Heritage before it, is also acquirable from the Deepstone Crypt Raid. Now, a couple of notes on the Succession. First of all, it is, again, craftable. Second of all, Reconstruction is available, and definitely the perk that I would recommend on this third column. There's also Lead from Gold, which can be useful in some scenarios, but Reconstruction is going to be super duper nice. And importantly, most of the time, honestly, in PvE, I don't worry too much about barrels and magazines. Like, they matter in some cases, and you know, they're going to make the gun feel a little bit different, but they're not going to like truly impact the actual value of the gun in PvE in most scenarios. However, on Succession, I really do recommend getting a mag perk that is going to give you the 4 mag instead of 3, especially with Reconstruction, as we talked about a little bit with Heritage. Now we're going from 3 to 6 with Reconstruction, or if we have the mag perk, we can go from 4 to 8. Secondly, the new Succession does have the firing line roll. I wouldn't actually recommend this as the roll to go for. I still think Reconstruction Vorpal Weapon is the way to go on Succession. Now, I would have that roll, and I had about almost 10,000 PvE kills on it. However, we got rid of it for charity, so we love it. It was awesome, but I don't currently have it. We are working on crafting a new one, so we're going to get Reconstruction Vorpal on the new one that we can craft once we can craft it. I actually do have it craftable. It's just level 1. But we're going to get that back. We're going to get Reconstruction Vorpal. We're going to get the mag perk on it. I would recommend actually TAC mag instead of extended mag. It's going to be a little bit better. It still gives the 4 mag either way, but go for that. But Reconstruction Vorpal, super nice. Again, Reconstruction firing line can be useful, but usually a sniper, other than Izanagis Burden, like we talked about earlier, it's not your main like DPS weapon. You're not going to like stand next to 2 people in like a raid, like, you know, or a big group in a raid, or like a GM or a dungeon. You're not going to like try to just pure DPS something with a sniper. You're going to use your heavy for that. So even though this is 20% and Vorpal's 15, I feel like that 5% extra is not worth it on a non like pure true DPS weapon. Maybe in the future, like again, this is craftable, so if things kind of change or you really want to use a sniper, you need so much ammo that you're going to use your power weapon and your special weapon, but not use like Izanagi rocket swap, like maybe, like it's not a bad one. Like if you get a Reconstruction firing line, I'd keep it. Again, once you get it craftable, you can always change it later, but I think Reconstruction Vorpal is the play, or maybe again Lead from Gold Vorpal in some scenarios. Yeah, those are going to be the plays you want for this Succession. And again, like before, it does have the Bray Inheritance origin trait that's going to give you some ability energy just when being used. And finally, our top 3. These 3 weapons are some of my favorite weapons in Destiny history, and at number 3 we have Fatebringer. Fatebringer is my favorite hand cannon of all time and can be received from the Vault of Glass raid, or even guaranteed and farmable from specifically Master Templar during Vault of Glass featured raid weeks, which also has the additional benefit of being the Time Lost, aka Adept variant. Basically for Vault of Glass, they just add a little bit of flavor. Time Lost here means the exact same thing as Adept. It gives you the extra little yellow bar stats, it gives you the ability to use Adept mods, same exact thing. So do note that Fatebringer is actually not craftable and does not have origin traits, as this kind of came before crafting and came before origin traits. However, it's still a top 3 weapon for me. And not only that, if you do go for the Master version and get the Time Lost version, these 2 perks are always going to be the same on this weapon. It's Explosive Payload and Firefly. And this is the role I would go for, personally. I would go for Explosive Payload and Firefly. You can get other roles on the top. There's different things you can get there. There's some very solid ones. But honestly, for me, this is it. Explosive Payload Firefly. Explosive Payload we talked a little bit about earlier. I love that ability to stun champions easier with that kind of that multi-hit. Get more damage. You lose that damage drop off. And again, Firefly, we get a little bit of AoE. We get that ability to kill enemies that are, surrounding the main enemy we're focusing. If we get that precision hit, a lot of times, again, you're using your primary on weaker enemies. If like a bunch of thralls are running at you, a bunch of acolytes are around you, you get that singular kill. It explodes everything around it. I like explosions just in general. Maybe I'm a little bit biased on that, but I really, really like Explosive Payload and Firefly. Technically, Explosive Payload is also explosions a little bit, so really, really nice. Again, Firefly is also going to give you that reload speed whenever you get the precision hits. I will say, as much as I do love this role, and I do love both of these perks, I'm not the best at always getting precision hits, so I do like the reload speed master. I like having a little bit of reload speed and getting that reload speed up. Again, I actually had a weapon and a Fatebringer that had like 30,000 kills on it that had a slightly different role than this, but we also got rid of that for charity. So we're working with what we got, and this is close to what we had before. Flared Magwell, again, is nice, gives me that more reload speed there, more reload speed here, get a little bit extra stability. As a controller user, I like a little bit of stability. Obviously, range is going to be really, really nice on a hand cannon in a lot of cases, especially for mouse and keyboard. That seems to kind of be the thing. Mouse and keyboard, you want a little bit more range. Controller, you want a little bit more stability. And in PvE, I'm not too worried about it. For me, I do like it just feels better with more reload speed. Again, especially if I'm not proccing Firefly. But main thing for me is Explosive Payload and Firefly. The rest is a little bit up to, what you're trying to use it for and what you're looking at. The final two are honestly 1A and 1B, but we've got to make a choice. At number 2, we've got Arbelist. This weapon is unique in that it is one of the few non-heavy linear fusion rifles, and I do break my own rule here, as it is not directly acquirable, instead being a random world drop, but it is too good to not talk about and include in this video. And at least it is still acquirable. It's not something like you can't get at all. You will eventually get this. You have Xur to potentially get some exotics from. And again, just playing the game, you'll get exotics. So a couple things that Arbelist does that literally like nothing else in the game can do. Well, first we've got anti-barrier built in. So if you're doing anything with champions, specifically barrier champions, Arbelist will one-shot the barriers at any level, including Grandmaster level. Super duper strong, super duper useful. We have other ways to get barrier, and like barrier alone, useful. But it's not like the main reason we're using it. It's really, really strong. It's really, really good. Again, the ability to one-shot, the ability for this to be a special weapon, so it does hit harder just in general, rather than having to do like double primaries, which a lot of times pre-Arbelist, we either had to do that or use something like Ariana's Vow, which was still technically a primary weapon because it's a hand cannon, but use special ammo. But basically, Arbelist is really, really good at destroying barriers, killing barriers, and can still be used for kind of secondary damage, because linear fusion rifles do a ton of damage, especially power linear fusion rifles. This is special, so it doesn't do as much as that, but it hits really hard on anything, again, especially barrier champions. Now, not only that, but a second part of this intrinsic trait is that it fires slugs that cause massive damage to combatant shields, not just barrier shields. This is all shields. So you got Void, Arc, Solar, the shields that you're going to see in a lot of endgame content where, there's multiple shield types or whatever else. Doesn't matter if there's a singular shield type. This is going to break it. Arbelist will just one-shot like every shield in the game, basically, that exists. It will one-shot it. So you don't have to worry about match game. Match game is used in like 99% of endgame content. And if you don't have the right damage type on your energy or maybe your power weapon, a lot of times that's going to be painful. But if you have Arbelist, now suddenly you can break all those shields. If there's also barriers, which there usually is, because again, that's kind of how Bungie is doing the endgame. It's match game, throw in champions, boom, you're done. Arbelist, you're one-stop shop to counter that. And not only that, but if you also get the Catalyst and leveled up and use it, it's going to reload this weapon every single time that you break any shield. That's again a barrier shield. When the barrier pops up and it has its shield and you break that shield, that will reload this weapon from reserves. If you Void, Arc, Solar shield, you just break in a random enemy's shield, that will reload this weapon from reserves. So when you're using this weapon, usually you're trying to break one of those shields and you just reload it. Don't have to worry about reloading it. Super duper nice, super duper useful. The second part of this is never going to apply. It's not an energy weapon. It's not technically matching the damage type of a shield. so you're not going to regenerate any ammo on hit with this, but again, that first part of Genesis, very, very useful. And not only that, but it's just a good, like, ranged weapon. It's, you know, it's kind of like a sniper rifle-ish, where, you know, if something's further away from you, and you don't have a lot of range, like maybe you're using an SMG, maybe you're using, like, a heavy LFR where you don't necessarily want to use it, or heavy rocket especially. You don't want to necessarily, like, use it to kill, like, a sniper that's far away from you. You don't want to, like, use all that, like, you know, the power ammo that's going to be a little harder to come by. This can just, it's very flexible. It can just be, it can be used for anything. It can be used for, like, a weaker target, could be used for like a medium tanky target, it could be used for a super tanky target, it could be used at medium range, far range. I mean, you can use it even at like a little bit closer range. LFRs don't have like super scopes, so it's a little bit easier to use it at closer range than a sniper usually is. That also means it's not quite as easy to use it at a very, very far range, but it's just very flexible and just, it does everything. And my pick for the final and best kinetic weapon in the game is none other than Wither Horde. This grenade launcher is purchasable from the Monument to Lost Lights kiosk in the tower, and should be one of, if not your very first purchase from it as a new player. Again, along with Arbelist, these are technically 1A and 1B. I went with Wither Horde as number 1, mainly because of the ease of access and acquirability, but it's a really, really good weapon as well. So Wither Horde has a couple of different uses, which I feel like is just best shown more than told. And so one of its main uses is literally just to lock down a spawn. So like when things are, you know, where something is going to spawn, you just plop a Wither Horde down, everything either runs into it or is already on it, and everything just dies. You can do this in like very, very much content in the game. Like you just plop it again, and it just, everything just dies, and you just keep doing that, everything runs into it, you get all the things dead. Wither Horde OP. The other nice thing about Wither Horde is, with the Catalyst, it has auto-loading holsters. So you can, like, plop a Wither Horde down on the ground, you switch to your primary, you kill a couple things, and then you're like, oh no, there's another enemy there. Just, like, drop a Wither Horde on the ground, immediately swap off of it, go back to your primary, kill more things. It's like, oh no, there's ads spawning over here. Plop a Wither Horde down, switch to your primary, help kill the things. Wither Horde's killing most of it, but again, like, the primary can also kill it. It's like, oh no, more ads, Wither Horde. Like, you just keep going. Like, it's nuts. So as I just mentioned, the Wither Horde Catalyst, this is a like absolute 100 bajillion% requirement to make this the best kinetic weapon in the game. It will autoload your weapon. Not only that, it also increases your handling to 100, so when you're using it, kind of how I was just showing and just talking about, and you're swapping weapons back and forth, that increased handling, gonna make that easier, gonna make that faster, but you need this Catalyst. It is nice because you will get it automatically. You go talk to Banshee, right? Once you buy this weapon, go talk to Banshee, he'll give you the quest. Hard part is you do need 100 Crucible grenade launcher kills and quite a few activities to get the Catalyst, and then leveling it's not that hard, but getting the Catalyst, it will take some time. It is pretty grindy, but it is incredibly, very, very, very worth it. And so the secondary use case, or kind of similar use case, but just kind of a little bit different on how we're actually like actively doing it, is for DPS. So for DPS, you're going to kind of do the same idea where you shoot a Wither Horde at something, and then you switch to a different weapon. So if you Wither Horde something, and then switch to, you know, like an LFR or a rocket, it doesn't really matter. Like any primary, or I'm sorry, any heavy weapon, kind of like Izanagis, like we talked about earlier, the Wither Horde's taking, it's doing damage, and then, you know, your heavy weapon, or whatever else you're using, is also doing damage, adding total damage to what you're doing. Also know for this season specifically, it's even extra good because of Weaken Clear. As a grenade launcher, which Wither Horde is, you will get the weaken effect on any boss or champion target whenever it hits it, basically. So it's an extra 15% damage on top of the Wither Horde damage for whatever weapon you then end up switching to get, you know, more damage. So you hit the Wither Horde, you get the Wither Horde damage, you get the Weaken Clear for 15% debuff, and then, you know, switch to your LFR. That LFR is doing 15% more damage than it would normally do. And not only that, but if you use this on, well, any target, but, you know, like a lot of times like a maybe medium tankiness target, and then switch to your primary to kind of take it down, it will also drop that Wither Horde kind of blighting AoE slow damage effect on the ground. So, you know, it kills the target, helps kill the target, and then it drops it, and then it has that pool on the ground that you just were seeing and kind of talked about, where it's going to do even more damage to things that happen to walk into it or happen to be around it. So it's really good for AoE as well. And that's all for today. As I mentioned before, if there's any weapons that you think I missed or just have other weapons you enjoy using, please leave them in the comments below. And if you have any thoughts on my future versions of this for energy weapons and power weapons, let me know below as well. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.